This is your guide to book publishing. Everything you want to know but didn't know what to ask with your host, Dr. Judith Briles. On the show today, you'll find out where book publishing is going and how to take advantage of it. How to identify and avoid publishing predators. What opportunities are emerging as the book trade evolves in new forms. How to avoid losing money and much, much more. Join us now as a variety of publishing pros will deliver insights and strategies to take the author to the next level of publishing. It's your guide to book publishing. Everything you want to know but didn't know what to ask. Brought to you by Author U and the Book Shepherd. And now, here's your host, Dr. Judith Briles.
Well, hello. My gosh, I can't believe that we are coming to a fast, screeching close to the month of August. Is rather stunning to me that it could be happening too quickly. Well, one of the things that August is about, which is summer, which also brings families, kids, adults into libraries. And what authors need to know is that libraries are truly one of your best friends. And why? Because they buy books. And 2, they pay their bills on time. 3, they have great environments for events, and they love to work with authors, especially in whatever your local community is. So one of the things that we're going to be doing at Author U is having the pleasure of attending the Colorado Library Association. Our home base here is in Colorado. I live in Colorado. And I will be attending, not only as an attendee, but also exhibiting. And our members who are paid up members will have the opportunity up to a certain amount of actually exhibiting within our booth and having signings and talking directly with librarians, which many have already opted to do. And they are very excited to be there. And with that, we have the president of the Colorado Library Association, Kari May, who is going to talk about libraries and how to even create a test place for the readers to discover new audiences and how to work with a librarian, how to reach out to a librarian. So I'm excited about having that. So let me go ahead and introduce her because we'll have a very full hour. And again, as I've said, libraries are an author's best friend. And you do want to work closely with them and get to know them. And by the way, librarians are great resources when you're working on an idea. They're going to let you know what's moving. And especially if I had children's books, I would be going in there and not only looking over what they have in their collections, but ask the librarians that are there what they think about the cover that you're contemplating. They often have great suggestions. And then the third thing I'm going to say here is that librarians can do things that Google can't do. They have skills to do deep diving into areas, if you're doing any research, that sometimes you hadn't even imagined going down a specific rabbit hole, that they will come up with it. So use them and love them. Don't leave them. So with that, let me introduce you to Kari May. She's the director of the Elbert County Library District, and she's president, as I said, of the Colorado Association of Libraries. She's worked in a variety of libraries, including a medical library, the music library at the University of Northern Colorado, and the High Plains Library District. She's been as the director of Elbert since 2008, and her passion is for connecting people to the resources they need, whether that is in materials, other people, or agencies within their community. And here's something about Kari. She has no aspirations herself to be an author. After all authors need an audience of readers, and reading is something she is good at. So let's bring on an official reader, expert reader in a capacity. Hi, Kari. How are you today?
I'm doing great. Thanks, Judith.
All right. Let's just jump into this. What's new in the future of libraries that authors should know about, authors and publishers?
Well, I think what's new for libraries as well as, readers everywhere is the introduction of the digital content into the arena of publishing and readership. because, traditionally you think libraries, you think books, you think stacks of books in the library. And so librarians today, we hear more often than we want to hear what's going to happen to libraries now that everything is digital. And so I think that we're doing our best to embrace the digital content along with our regular collection, but also recognizing that the library is more than the contents. It is a place for people to come together. It's a great place to hold an author event, as you mentioned earlier. So I think that looking at the library as full service and providing all those aspects to the community is something that we are looking forward to doing today and into the future.
Sounds terrific. All right, so the future, and what is the future? You think that libraries are going to be here to stay? I mean, we do get, there is internet buzz that goes around. They're going to disappear. They're going to become old hat. What do you think?
And I think exactly to one of the points you talked to, too, that librarians can do things that Google can't do. The more information there is in the universe, the more difficult it is for us to curate it and make sense of it and filter through it to find the stuff that is really relevant to what we need to know today. And I think that's something that librarians really add and can help both authors and researchers and people in general is make sense of that glut of information that's out there.
Yeah, and in it there is a glut. There's a lot of misinformation too.
Right.
As you know.
Yeah. I will also say on the digital content and libraries, right now our circulation I kind of took a straw poll across the state. The percentage of our checked out materials that comes from downloadable content, and that's both ebooks and audiobooks, is still maybe 2 to 10% of our overall circulation. So, it is making inroads into public libraries, but we are still the place where people go both for the traditional as well as the e-content. Our usage of e-content is exploding. My library district last year saw an astronomical, 200% increase in the number of downloadable books that were checked out, but that still remained only 2% of my overall checkouts.
I have to confess. I mean, we're getting ready to do I'm going to go underground here for a couple of weeks on what I call a working vacation. I stay close, but I am out of reach of everybody because I'm actually working on my book number 32. Mm-hmm. And that what I was, and my husband joins me on this, so he gets to have a stay vacation too. And that he downloading some books that he wanted onto his Nook. And the cost of that, I could have bought used books for less than what he was paying.
Yes.
And I'll tell you that, and of course, getting them through you is even better. But that a lot of our listeners need to understand that from the library, it's like when you check out, take home a stack of books. In the old days, it used to be you only got one at a time. And now how many books? Is it unlimited that they allow carry in a lot of places?
It depends on the library system that you are with. At our library district, we allow 50 books at a time to check out. Other libraries allow 99. Others, it's unlimited. And sometimes the limit is just, how many can you carry?
I need to bring in my wagon.
Yes.
Borrow the grandkids' wagon to bring them in. All right. So that checking out that's called free. That's called free. And here I'm going to bring this up again. That I was buying for John, and I wasn't buying books, ebooks that you don't buy them, you don't own them. You are basically leasing them, and the ebook platform people can pull those books off of your reader at any time, which a lot of people experienced in what was known as Kobogate, when all the erotica books that were done by independent and self-publishers were arbitrarily yanked one morning off. And people didn't understand that they have the power, and it is the power to do it. You don't own these books. So working with a library means I get to borrow the books. I don't have to pay anything. I've got to return them in a reasonable period of time. And in most cases, basically, it's unlimited what I can take out at one time. So that's a huge plus to work with a library. The other side of it is, though, my math is I was crunching the number and I was buying him a few books for his stay vacation, that I realized I could have gone online and purchased these same books for several dollars less than what I was paying for his rented eBook version. And that was a real aha to me, Kari, that why would you want to do that? I think I'd rather have books and then loan them back, give them away to other people and pass it along. But that's me. That's how I operate.
Right. And I think the challenge with that digital content, too, is you buy the book, you own it, and you can't give it to anybody else. You can't take it to the library for their used book sale. It's yours forever, whatever price you've paid for it, versus you come to the library, you check out one of our books, you bring it back, the next person checks it out. So, at least we're still allowing that shared responsibility on that end for it. But you touch on something else, too, with the owned versus leased concept, and that's something that we struggle with in libraries as well. The main players in the digital content world for libraries are a 3M platform and then also Overdrive. And with both of those, with the Overdrive, we actually lease the content. We pay for the book, but we basically lease the content for as long as they think that that's good, right? So far they've let us keep them for as long as we've had the contract with Overdrive. But there is that concern that one day Overdrive might say, oh, you know what, we can no longer give you access to that book. And then we're going, oh, but we told our patrons we have it. So we run into that same issue. With 3M, some libraries have been able to start shifting that paradigm so that the library actually buys the digital content for the book and is able to keep that in their collection. And that's something that we're really, in the long term, that's what we would prefer to do, just the same way that we own the physical book. We would like to own that digital copy of the book because that gives us a lot more flexibility as the digital content world changes.
And the digital world is continuing to change, and that's what everyone needs to be tuned into. All right, we're coming up to our first break. We're going to come back and get into, with Kari May, how to work with librarians, how to use them as a test place for readers, and how to do a try it before you buy it. Think of it as a try it before you buy it opportunity. So we'll be right back. This is Judith Briles. It's Author You, your guide to book publishing.
This is your guide to book publishing. Everything you want to know but didn't know what to ask. With your host, Dr. Judith Briles. And we'll be right back with more great information right after these on the Rockstar Radio Network.
Is there a book in you or another? Author You will show you how to create, develop, and publish your book without being hoodwinked. If you already have a book out, you'll find a supportive and brainstorming community that's connected and creative no matter where you live. Author U brings in national experts for its book camps and annual author extravaganza held each May. It has regular meetings and delivers webinars for its members on timely topics. Through Author U's extensive network, members enjoy exclusive benefits, including significant discounts for a variety of services necessary to publishing. The Resource, its online book publishing news magazine, is content-heavy and it's free. If you want to create a book that has pizzazz, punch, and panache, Author U is for you. If you're a hobbyist or a casual author, it's not. Join Author U today through its website at authoru.org. Follow Author U on Twitter at Author U and on Facebook at Author U, where timely author and publishing tips and articles are posted daily. Author U, where the author goes to become seriously successful.
Every picture tells a story. And it's a truism that people do judge a book by its cover. Nick Sellinger and NZ Graphics have been in the business of producing superior graphic cover design and interior layout for self-published authors, independent and traditional publishers for years. He has developed a reputation for excellent work, fast turnarounds, and best of all, affordable pricing. NZ Graphics also produces ebooks, and book marketing materials such as posters, sell sheets, postcards, bookmarks, business cards, logos, and more. Books designed for his clients have won multiple book awards, including Best Book Award by U.S. Book News, multiple Evie Awards from the Colorado Independent Publishers Association, Indie Book Awards, the San Francisco Book Festival Award, and Freedom Medal Award from Valley Forge. Visit www.nzgraphics.com or call 303-985-4174 for more details about making your book the success it should be. Mention that you are an FOJ, friend of Judith's, and that you heard about NZ Graphics on your guide to book publishing.
Welcome back to your guide to book publishing. Everything you want to know but didn't know what to ask. If you want to write and publish a book, if you want to be successful as an author, your guide to book publishing, everything you want to know but didn't know what to ask, is for you. Stay tuned and you'll hear about statistics, scenarios, and strategies on what to do now to get you published. So let's get back to the show. And here again is your host, Dr. Judith Briles.
Hi, with me is Kari May. She's president of the Colorado Library Association. And we're talking libraries and how you can use them, what's coming down the pike. We've been talking about digital. And I thought it was interesting that where she said, although usage is up, 200%, it is only overall 10% of the total transitions that happen in the libraries with books. Is that correct, Kari? Did I hear that right?
Yes, and that's the top end. It's between 2 and 10%.
All right. So 90% plus of all library users are after the printed book. That's what I heard.
Yes.
Okay. All right. It's still, and also out in the printed world, eBooks have flattened out in their sales. They saw that coming. They were projecting it was going to happen in 2014, and it actually started happening last year. There's certainly a big chunk of there, but 60 to 70% of all books that are used are bought in the retail world are in the print arena. Always, for our authors, keep that in mind with that. Okay, Kari, so you talked about libraries being a test place for readers to discover new authors. So expand on that a little bit and let us know what you're thinking when you said that.
Sure. One of the things I think authors and publishers both have a concern that, well, if I sell my book to the library, then they only have to buy one copy and 30 people can read that one copy. And so there's a concern, I think, historically with libraries that cuts into future sales of the book. But I think actually the opposite happens. You have all of these books here in the library. You can come test them for free, take one home, and you fall in love with the author. And then pretty soon, it's not enough for you to be the person on hold at the library to read your favorite author when it comes out. You have to go out and purchase that author's new books as soon as they come out. So I think we actually help develop a market for authors to be discovered sitting on the shelf. If you're sitting browsing through the library and you find one book you like and then you're attracted to the cover next to it, you're like, ooh, I'll try this author too. So I think that's one of the benefits of discovering books at the library is that there's always so many around here. Which, trust me, every day when I go home, I think I take a new stack home with me to experiment with. But I think that's one of the great joys of working in the library is just that discovery of all the new authors that are here.
So when a librarian falls in love with an author, what happens? I mean, how do they do the shout-outs to let their regulars know that there's books? This author is someone who might get their attention besides just putting the book out. Do they try to bring in the author in if it's in the local vicinity? Do they create any special positioning for the book? And I guess we also should ask is, how should authors romance librarians?
Chocolate always works. No. So one of the things, we do several things within the library to help showcase certain authors. if we really like somebody, we'll do the hand sell like they do at a bookstore, where I'll be like, oh my gosh, I just read this author. Have you read it yet? And actually place it in somebody's hands if it's available in the library. We also do shelf talkers where the book sits on the shelf. We'll say staff recommends this book. We many of us try to have some sort of online reviews, either through Goodreads or through our library catalogs, where both we as the librarians but also our patrons can add a book review about a book, and then when you're searching our catalog, it'll come up with some star reviews, much like it would on Amazon or in Goodreads, so that there's some visual ways that call attention to that book. If it is a local author, we do love to host local authors at our libraries. It depends on where you are, how fancy we can get. You might get some cookies and lemonade at one library and, a more fancy spread at another, but we do always try to do something to encourage our patrons to come in for those book events. I was just talking with Douglas County Libraries, and they do an author showcase periodically throughout the year, and they rotate it between each of their branches and invite 5 or 6 local authors who have published a book within the last year. They give the author an opportunity to talk for about 5 minutes and give a plug for their book, and then they break out and let people talk to each author individually and buy an autographed copy if that's what they would like. So, the plus for being local is that you always have a built-in audience that you can try to tap into at your local library.
And bring that in. So librarians like chocolate. I heard that. And lemonade and cookies. Is that what it is?
Yes, we don't get paid well, so feed us. No, just joking.
Okay, so feed the librarian is what I heard. All right, so
right.
that's a good tip. All
right. Well, and I will say, but one of the other, really the question is, how does an author, and particularly a local author, get the attention of the local library? And I will tell you, I get email solicitations probably 2 or 3 times a week. Hey, just want you to know I have a new book out. You should consider getting it for your library. Well, I don't know who you are. It's not clear from your email where you are. So I need something a little more personal that's going to say, hey, Kari, I live in Parker, which is right next door to you. I just wrote this book. Would you be interested in adding it to your collection? So something more personal, something more that demonstrates that you know geographically who you're talking to. And also, if you want to drop by and bring me a copy of your book to either have me read it and review it, or consider donating it to our collection. Those kinds of things would get your book on our shelf and into the hands of people who then might, buy future copies of the book. But it gives you more exposure. But, being a little more personal about it, I think goes a long way towards us sorting your book out from the thousands that we have to review every month and make choices on how many, what books we can add to our collection.
So use the personal pitch, and here's what I would add to it. I would, if you know who you're going to be talking to, I guess I would Google them and put in librarian, see if you can find out something more personal, like they love dogs, or if they write a blog. A lot of times people will reveal things that they love or maybe they don't love, and you can make another connection that way as well.
Right.
And follow up with that way. You mentioned, Kari, Goodreads. So
Yep.
Let's come back to that. So is Goodreads something that librarians read regularly, contribute to?
Yes. I have talked to other, we call them the collection development departments at libraries, the people who actually make the selections for what books get added to the library collection. And sometimes we will read the reviews on Goodreads to see what kinds of books are trending, or, if we're on the fence about a review through Publishers Weekly or something, we can go to Goodreads and see what, actual readers are saying about the books. And there was actually just a discussion probably about a month ago about some reviewers on Goodreads who are not really very nice and publishing kind of, rotten reviews about people just to get their name out there as a reviewer, and it's kind of skewing, that bullying part of Goodreads. It's like, let's try to ignore that and stick with the, stick with the stuff that we can filter out and recognize as the quality reviews that are on there as a whole.
So, do you go to Amazon also and look at reviews?
I personally don't. I know librarians who do. I try not to buy into the Amazon empire. on a personal level, but that is another source because we know that our patrons go there too. So if something's trending and getting a good review on Amazon, then we should be aware of that and possibly be buying some of those books because our patrons will come in and be asking for them.
Well, let me give you, if I may, name two titles of new local people since you're here in Colorado. There's a very fun book called, and it's a great read, called The Bootlegger 40 Ford. So anyone who likes car-related stories, great for guys. It's adult. This is a great book, The Bootlegger 40 Ford. Charles Clark is the author, and it's just come out. And there's another one that I think is going to start getting some buzz, and it's called Shot Down, and it's the true life story of the crew of the B-17 Susan Ruth. And it's the first time. It's the most intricate, detailed biography, and the author's father was the captain. I mean, describing the plane as it's going down and the flames wrapping around his neck and burning his scarf and throat. But the farms people in Belgium rescued and hid them from the Nazis. They eventually joined the resistance in Belgium and fought the Nazis, and they all pretended to be deaf mutes so they couldn't talk.
Wow.
And it's an amazing story. I suspect it's going to be a movie, but that's Shot Down by Stephen Snyder. He's not a local, but it's just a great new book that I had the pleasure of working with.
Great.
And supporting. Those are the kind of things. So what we're doing, listeners, is talking about how buzz gets started. And people start talking about books, and they connect with people who might be able to do something with them. But this is the first time I have heard that librarians are going to Goodreads because, as you know, Publishers Weekly can only do so many reviews. Forward, I'm assuming you look at Forward reviews as well. You can only do so many reviews in Forward.
Right.
On that. So Goodreads is ongoing all the time.
Right, and one of the things I like about Goodreads is that, I have actually connected with authors through Goodreads based on things that I've read personally. I just had an author contact me last month and say, hey, I saw that you reviewed my first book. Would you be willing to read a galley proof of my book that's coming out and publish a review before it comes out? And I was so honored and flattered. I was like, well, of course I will. I was like, that's how you get to me, right? Because you told me that you value my opinion.
All right, here we're gonna come right back. We're talking about how to get into the heart of the librarian and get your book noticed. This is Judith Briles. It's Author You, your guide to book publishing.
This is your guide to book publishing. Everything you want to know but didn't know what to ask. With your host, Dr. Judith Briles. And we'll be right back with more great information right after these on the Rockstar Radio Network.
Since 1987, Color House Graphics has set the standard for quality book production. Whether you decide to print a small quantity of books or need a large print run, depend on Color House to help you. You'll receive professional help and advice the moment you reach one of our representatives. If you mention hearing about us on your guide to book publishing with Judith Briles, we will provide you a discount on the first order you place. To speak with a project manager, call us toll-free at 800-454-1916 or visit us at www.colorhousegraphics.com.
When Ned Thompson and Harry Shore started Thompson Shore in 1972, they believed employees with great character would make up the best company. They were right. They hired people who were not only experts in bookmaking, but who were obsessed with quality and delivering exceptional customer service. Almost 40 years later, Thompson Shore remains a 100% employee-owned company. Ned and Harry knew that successful customer projects are a direct result of empowered employees. We specialize in all books for large and small publishers. Creating beautiful and well-made books, we're dedicated to pleasing our customers by making the experience a good one from start to finish. The personal touch we have with our customers allows us to be innovative in solving their most difficult challenges. Our platform also ensures that we can remain flexible to meet our customers' unique needs and expectations. Our marketing kit can create buzz for your title, enhancing the promotion of your book during infancy. When you need to test the market to gauge your future sales, we can provide digitally printed books that will transition seamlessly into a larger offset run. From ebook to hard copy to delivery, our skillful customer service teams are at the ready to answer your most pressing question. At Thompson Shore, we know that making the highest quality books requires more than just best technologies. It requires superior customer service, professionalism to the trade, and commitment to environmental and social values. With these standards of excellence in place, you can be sure that we will always help you put your best book forward.
Welcome back to your guide to book publishing. Everything you want to know but didn't know what to ask. Coming up, you'll hear more about statistics, scenarios, and strategies on what to do now to get you published. So let's get back to the show. And here again is your host, Dr. Judith Briles.
I want to, very good discussion on Goodreads. And I think that if you're not on Goodreads, it sounds like y'all need to get there. Because if librarians are scouting them for what the consumer is saying, that this is a great resource to go to. So Goodreads, add it to your to-do list. Kari, let's talk about how you consider bringing in a collection. In the old days, it was Kirkus, having a review in Kirkus was really important, or Publishers Weekly, or in the Library Journal. What's different today? Or is it?
What's different today is there's even more places that we have to look to see what's going on in the book publishing world. But the basic criteria are still the same. Those are still the main things that we look at. We look at Book List, Publishers Weekly, Library Journal. Kirkus took a hiatus for a while, but I believe it's back now. And I should give you a disclaimer here that I don't actually do very much book selection right now, so I went out and asked a bunch of my library friends what they do. Yes. So I have an assimilated answer here for you. Right. But we do all have a collection development policy of some sort for our libraries that emphasize what collections we might be focusing on related to our strategic plan. We want to be responsive to the communities that we are in and things like that. So some of those basic criteria, particularly for the local author market, is probably equally important to you all as, the trade publications with book reviews. But, we have to factor in all those criteria when we decide whether to purchase a book or not, because we still only have finite shelf space in our libraries and we can't buy everything.
No, you can't. So let me ask this question. Is there a rotation? For example, this year we're going to be concentrating on adding to our business collection, or is there a concentration on, no, we're just going to build up our children's, or is it maybe balanced, or is it all up in the air?
It's kind of all across the board, quite honestly, but the baseline, we do try to stay well-rounded and make sure, particularly on the nonfiction side, that our collections are current and have accurate information. Nobody wants the 1960 Merck manual for health issues because it's not going to be accurate anymore. So we do try to make sure that, particularly on the nonfiction side, we stay up to date. But then, as I said, with our strategic plans, last year we received extra money from the state to help boost our early literacy collections, because that was an area of focus that the governor and governor's office had as well, is to help increase access to children's materials for children, to help increase reading scores across the state. So every library, publicly funded library in the state, received extra monies toward that collection.
All right, so let me come back to how do we define current? Was it this copyright year, last year's copyright year? And at what point do libraries start weeding?
Current is defined in part by the subject area that we're talking about. In medicine, it might be within the last 5 years. In learning a new language, it might be a broader time horizon. It just depends on what specific topic you're talking about. On the fiction side, generally, we'll keep older books, we'll keep the classics, we'll keep anything that people are continuing to read. So we start to weed when a book sits on the shelf for too long without anybody checking it out. And each library has its own criteria for what that is, depending on shelf space and demand. It could be a year, it could be 3 years if it hasn't checked out to anybody, that we will say, okay, I guess we don't need that one anymore.
So then they disappear.
Yes.
And when you look at that kind of a demand, is there a criteria? If someone only has checked it out twice in the last year, is that a low demand and it's a candidate for exiting the building?
I'm a softie, so I tend to say if it's checked out at all, I'll keep it. But, again, it depends on your space demands and the specific criteria at your branch, how much, circulation allows the book to stay. And also, you might have like a classic, like The Tale of Two Cities, that hasn't checked out very often, but it's a classic, and it's something that we probably should keep in the library just because it is recognized as a classic in literature. So sometimes we have to make those decisions about something that's still a seminal work that may or may not circulate as often, but is still part of the base canon of American literature.
Got it. Okay, so it's a little bit nonfiction. It needs to be fairly current,
Right.
is what I heard you say. But fiction can have much longer legs to it.
Correct. And sometimes with the nonfiction, it doesn't matter how many times it's checked out. If the information is no longer deemed current, we think we should take it off the shelf because it's no longer providing factual information.
Or if another book has come in that can bump it out and take care of it. Yes.
Right.
Okay. All right. That's great to know. All right. Let me ask you about authors. And I've always said that I view there is a difference between a independent published author who is with either a small press or they've created a small press themselves and gone through it, and that an author who is maybe a hobbyist. And they're going to have a one shot, and if I sell a couple hundred copies, I mean, do you go through a differentiation of trying to figure out who you're going to bring in, or you don't care, you're just looking for a good book?
It's tough because there are so many books out there. As I said, sometimes even being with a small boutique publishing company gives you a little more clout than just being a one-stop, I self-publish this book, because there's some degree of more review that the book has gone through, maybe some editing. I have some concerns with someone who just says, oh, I've just spent my life dreaming to publish this book, so I did. I have some concern about the quality of the writing more than the quality of the content in that situation. So for me, there's some more weight going through at least a smaller, even independent publishing company.
Right. So whether it's self-published, independent published, that's not a roadblock for you, is what I'm hearing. Is that correct?
It's not. It's just it can be more difficult for me to discover you because, and that's an industry I think is just begging for somebody to embrace it, is doing reviews of these smaller publishing houses and or self-published works, because that is such an exploding portion of the books that are available to our readers. But how do we find them if we're not actively looking for them?
Mm-hmm. So when you go, you mentioned that you create shelf talkers. So those are comments that your librarians would make in and drop it in on top of a book? Or is that something that you want the authors to actually supply themselves to call attention? I mean, we used to do that in the old days. We would make all kinds of stuff.
Right. Well, I was actually talking about the librarian doing that, but, I think it would be pretty cool to come see a book and see that the author has taken time to say, this is why you should pick me off the shelf today. So, I'd be open to that if authors did that. But what I was talking about is on the staff side, somebody who has read the book promoting it through a shelf talker that they have written.
Okay. All right. So shelf talkers unite is what I'm hearing. We could go over that. Kari, are libraries a threat to book sales?
I don't think they are. Going back to that first question of, libraries are a test place to discover new authors. I think that that's a perception in the publishing industry, is that we're a threat, and particularly in the digital arena, because, with a print book, when you come into the library, you check it out, maybe 30 people check it out, and then the book has worn out, and we'll have to buy a replacement copy for it. And the same thing doesn't happen in the digital world. We get a copy of the book that we, well, either whether we lease it or we own it, we have it forever, and we won't have to buy a replacement copy because it's not going to wear out. So I think there's some perception, particularly on the publishing side, that the libraries can be a threat to the future sale of books. However,
so therefore, that's why they goose up the price so much, knowing that you're not going to be buying again.
Correct.
Reason? Yeah.
Correct. And, that's mostly, it's a problem mostly with the big five publishers, that they have marked up the prices on their books that they sell to libraries to offset that. And so we recognize that we still need to buy some of those bestsellers and those hot books that are at the top of the bestseller list, but what our patrons need to realize is we can't buy enough copies to keep up with demand because we have to pay more for it.
All right, so let me ask you this. If a book that is selling for, let's say, $27, you say you've got a fiction bestseller for $27.95, that's some of the big numbers would see a Dan Brown type book. That and are you telling me that his publisher, and I can't remember the name of his publisher, but his publisher would be selling that to you for $79.95?
Yep. Yeah, somewhere between $80 and $90 he would sell that to us for.
Okay, so I'm going to play devil's advocate. What would be preventing you from going to a Costco or a Sam's and buying it for $16.95?
I'm talking specifically about the digital copy of it. We can get the print copy for the same price that you can, but the digital copy is what they increase the price on.
That's what they do?
Yes.
Oh, okay. So that's very interesting, because I was trying to think, wait a minute, I'm going to go down to the local store and go shopping.
Right. And I think, this is a place where I feel like the authors are caught in the middle, because they don't necessarily think that this is a problem between libraries and authors, but they're caught between what their publisher will allow them to do. And so one of the solutions that we've been working with as libraries is going to the smaller publishing houses and the mid-list books and negotiation with those publishers, and they're willing to sell to us for the same cost or less, because they recognize the same that they did in the print world, that we help build their readership and produce future sales through the same way that you come and try a library at the book at the library and then go buy your next copy from the publisher directly.
Exactly. All right, we're going to come back. We'll finish this up, and we're going to get into some final things of what you can do to work directly with the librarians and get your books there. This is Judith Briles. Kari May is my guest today.
This is your guide to book publishing. Everything you want to know but didn't know what to ask. With your host, Dr. Judith Briles. And we'll be right back with more great information right after these on the Rockstar Radio Network.
The book shepherding concept is simple. The publishing world is changing, and so must you. You need an experienced shepherd and a guide to partner with you as you create, strategize, develop, publish, and achieve your publishing goals. You can't do it alone without paying the price. You can spend your money creating a book that turns out to be so-so, or you can create a book that looks and feels classy, builds your brand, and is a financial success, a bestseller. It's your choice. You choose. You need the book shepherd. Publishing is riddled with obstacles, sometimes nightmares for the author. You don't need problems. You want solutions. Dr. Judith Briles will shepherd you through the maze and the chaos. At times, she's had to step in and rescue a book that has been sabotaged by a publisher, or by a publishing service provider, or sometimes even the author themselves. Judith Briles is the book shepherd if you want to create a book with no regrets. Give her a call today, 303-885-2207. That's 303-885-2207, or email her at judith@briles.com. By the way, Briles is spelled B-R-I-L-E-S. Follow Judith on Twitter at My Book Shepherd and on Facebook at The Book Shepherd.
At Total Printing Systems, customer service is our priority. We are located in Southern Illinois. Our employees have an average of 18 years experience and know that customer relationships are important to our continued success. We have been a short-run book printer for nearly 40 years and always stay at the forefront of technology. Our niche is from 1 to 5,000 copies. Today, we offer digital, black and white, and 4-color high-speed inkjet printing, a cost-effective way to introduce color into your short-run titles. We, of course, offer traditional offset printing as well. Bindery is done in-house, from adhesive case binding to PUR perfect binding to mechanical binding of all types, including side sewing. We provide warehousing, kitting, distribution, inventory management, a new print-on-demand facility, streaming browser-based ebooks, and bookstore. Call us at 1-800-465-5200 for a quote on your next book project. You can also visit our website at www.tps1.com.
Welcome back to your guide to book publishing. Everything you want to know but didn't know what to ask. If you want to write and publish a book, if you want to be successful as an author, your guide to book publishing, everything you want to know but didn't know what to ask, is for you. Stay tuned and you'll hear about statistics, scenarios, and strategies on what to do now to get you published. So let's get back to the show. And here again is your host, Dr. Judith Briles.
Well, I've learned a lot about some of the digital sides, and for example, I did not realize that the mainstream publishers, that big five, the Hachetts, the Simon & Schusters, the Crowns, those kind, were at Random, Penguin, were actually significantly increasing the prices of ebooks to librarians because their ability to reloan them multiple times. I do get that. But since librarians are kind of a softie in my heart, that I just kind of look at this as a community thing. And I also know this, that authors don't get to participate in those that skyjacking of that price. They still get that little minimal price. So that's something for all of us to really think about. Kari, I think, as I'm noodling this, because I do a talk I give on how to create a celebration for your book, and I know I'm going to be making a new slide because I need to add in a specific slide because I'm thinking that your venue, a library, might be the cat's meow to have a book launch in.
Absolutely.
So who would an author approach, and what kind of ideas, what kind of celebrations have you seen work, and what hasn't worked? I think that's always important to say what doesn't work, because if you're going to do any event, and for our listeners, it's important to know that most book signings are not so great, and that in a typical bookstore, if you go in and hang out for an hour or two, it's 6 books. 6 books to sell is not very many. So one of the things the author has to do is take on the responsibility to get a crowd there as well. And you have to learn that you are selling a product. That's you and your book. And you have to take that approach. Not that you're going to get a soapbox off, although that would be an interesting technique to get people's attention. Hear ye. But you really, this is your job, whether you're there an hour or you're there all day. So, Kari, I'd like your 2 bits here.
Sure. Well, first of all, it depends on which library you're working with, who you would talk to. A lot of the larger libraries have either a programming department or a communications department that would kind of handle and coordinate any outside events such as an author event. In smaller districts such as myself, that might fall to me as the director to say, hey, I can at least pass this idea on to the appropriate person on my staff. In terms of some things that I've seen that have worked really well, we had a local author here who's actually a teacher at one of our local schools. He wrote a diet book, and when he did his author talk and promoted it to us, he brought in some samples of food that he had made in the book. So we all got to see how tasty his diet recipes were. And as you know, food always works to bring people in. So that was a really creative one that worked pretty well. We've also hosted, and I think I mentioned earlier that Douglas County Libraries does this, that they host a author forum where they have 4 or 5 authors together at the same time promoting their books. And I think that works well for 2 reasons. One, you have 5 authors who are telling all their friends and family, come to my author signing. And 2, you're getting some cross-promotion because I might come because Judith Briles is going to be there and I know I want her book, but then I might meet Charles Clark and say, ooh, your book sounds good too. So you might actually find new readers because they've come to hear one author and then discover you as well.
Mm-hmm. Which is always helpful to do that kind of thing. But usually my experience with the library systems that do those things, that the showcasing is few and far between. And when you're doing an author celebration event, that's a little bit more spontaneous, not meaning, oh, let's go down and do the library tomorrow. But although you know, you might haul in a crowd and do something, but you do want to do a little planning out for this, so you get invitations out and you build the buzz and you get to crowd. How does the library work with an author in doing that kind of event? So let's say, like, I have a brand new book out this year called, we just did a launch on it, Snappy, Sassy, Salty, and the Wise Words for Authors and Writers. A little teeny, like one of those little gift quote books. Mm-hmm. So if I called you and said, Kari, I'd love to do a launch of this book and build a crowd and you know, are you open to it? And you know, I'm open for suggestions type thing. So what kind of time frame, well, let's say that, oh yeah, we want to do this. What kind of time frame would we be looking for out so it could be planned with you? Is it something that you can do in a week, or do you need several weeks, several months? What are we looking at?
I would say, again, depending on the size of where you're going in terms of the size of the district and the resources that we have, I would say 2 to 4 weeks at a minimum to plan out in advance so that we can get it onto our calendar. If we have a newsletter, we can put it there. I live in a community that the newspaper only comes out once a week, so I only have a limited chance to promote your event that way. And so those are some of the things that we can do in terms of getting it onto our calendar and out to our constituents. But we also, at the same time, would expect you to do the same with your contact list and your audience so that together we would get a good group together. Because the worst thing for me, and I'm sure for you all as authors, is to have an event and be like, oh my gosh, this is so exciting, and then 5 people show up. So, you know, it's for both sides, you know, it's something that we've invested time and energy into. And as the author, I'm sure you're super excited to share it with people, and to promote it and have nobody show up is probably the worst thing that could happen. So that's why I say, you know, I'd say around a month is probably good.
Oh, it's awful. I mean, and every author has experienced things. And here's what if you run into one of those situations, let me just give you a bailout strategy. And it could be, sometimes things are quiet, and this could be the time that for whatever reason, I mean, I remember one time I got caught in a snowstorm in the South, you know, and how often does it snow in the South? It doesn't. But if they get 1 inch, it collapses their community.
Well, they panic.
You know, in Colorado, we're going, you got to be kidding. But it does happen. And so what it does is give you the opportunity, because you do have a captive audience. Why not educate? Why not do something special for all the people who are stuck in the building, and doing something like that? So that's my suggestions. Pretend that they're your personal client.
Right. And let me just mention another thing that I think would be helpful to us as libraries is one of my colleagues posted a question to the library community. Hey, I'm looking for an author, a local author, to speak on some aspect of gardening. Does anybody know anybody? And so if collectively, like through Author U or through other author guilds, if you will, if there was some collective place where we could look at as librarians and say, ooh, you know, so-and-so lives in the Aurora area and they write this type of book, then we could actually also then reach out to authors as we have specific programming needs at the library that would tie in with something that we're also doing at the library. I think that would be a great way to make some more connections between local authors and local audiences.
Well, that's a great idea, to contact them and let you know that you can do. It's actually, we recommend that doing it with the media. You let them know that you can, number one, step in. You're an expert on this. You can help them out, whatever you can. I mean, it's just a smart thing to do,
right?
In the process. Okay, so reaching out and doing things. Is there well, let me just ask this, because as we getting close here, what other ways would you see if you had a new author approaching you? I always like to ask this question: what do you wish authors with new books would ask you that they never do?
Wow, that's a really good question. And having talked to some other librarians, we don't want to feel like we're trapped in this awkward corner where we have to be enthusiastic and love the fact that you've given us yet another book because, we have several thousand already. So, making it personal and more humble of, hey, I have this and this is why I think it's a good match for your library. So I don't know if that really answers your question, but that's kind of, I don't like feeling like I'm put on the spot when I meet an author of like, gosh, I've never been able to get my book in your library. How can I do it? It's more, it's great to meet you, great to see you. How can we work together?
Mm-hmm. Well, I know that when we're at the Colorado Library Association meeting, we'll have a collection of books that we will donate. Somebody will win them all. We'll give them all away.
Well, I'll enter early and often then.
Oh, there you go with that. All right, so that's librarians are your best friend. You want to work with them, and if anything that you're taking away here is, number one, you need to get on Goodreads. I heard that loud and strong. Number two is that you do want to romance your local librarian because they can become a huge buzz supporter and cheerleader for you. And three, it's a good idea I believe, to give your library a copy of your book when it comes out. Kari, what are the odds of a repurchase, for example? If you have one book in, do you just stick with one book or do you add to the collection?
I sometimes add because I have multiple locations, and if I have a local author that, say, a book club would be interested in reading, then I need to make sure I have enough copies for the whole book club to read it, not just one copy that they have to share amongst themselves. So, if there's some further outreach into our community, there's a good possibility that we would get more than one.
So that's just even better to do that, and then also making your books available to them for digital and directly. So, Kari, your job is to contact Mark Coker at Smashwords
yes,
and see if you can put that together. And I think that would be great. And I want to thank you for being with us today. I look forward to being with you actually in October.
I think that sounds great.
When we have that. And again, there's a couple of times during the year you love your librarians. So make sure that you go to your library, tell your friends to call the library and get your book that way. There's always people who are looking to do that. So with that, thank you, Kari. And we will be back next week. Next week, we're going to be talking about creativity, how to get the juice going when the juice seems to be out of gas. This is Judith Briles. It's Author U, your guide to book publishing. Have a great week.
Thank you for being a part of Your Guide to Book Publishing. Everything you want to know but didn't know what to ask. With your host, Dr. Judith Briles. Each week,